not the fact.
But
and the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
All right, folks, so welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And as promised, we're joined once again by Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, South Carolina. Welcome back, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the report out today from the Senate Intelligence Committee, a bipartisan report, which basically says these attacks in Benghazi, where, of course, 4 Americans, including our ambassador, were killed, were preventable.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that the reporting from Libya back to the State Department about the threats were just ominous. I mean, they were foreshadowing the attack on the 16 August cable, where the ambassador reports back to the State Department in Washington, we can't defend the consulate against a coordinated al-Qaeda terrorist attack. There are at least 10 training camps in Benghazi. There was an additional request for security made after that cable. All indicators were that Benghazi was deteriorating. The Red Cross withdrew because their office was attacked. The British ambassador withdrew after the British withdrew after their ambassador was attacked in April. The consulate itself was attacked on June the 10th, and I found out just about 3 weeks ago that we renewed the lease on Villa B and C, the place of the attack, for a year in July. So after a June attack, somebody in the State Department decides to renew the lease on the property without fortifying it. So yes, I think it became a death trap. The question is, who's responsible for allowing it to become a death trap? Is it Hillary Clinton? No one's been fired. The report debunks the storyline of a protest caused by a hateful video. It was a pre-planned terrorist attack you should see coming, and so much for the phony scandal narrative.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, Senator, all we're getting is wall-to-wall Bridgegate coverage on Chris Christie. Yet, at least, I mean, if he knew it, then he's got to get his passport and leave the country. If he was in on it after lying, it would have been a lie if he was lying to us. But he fired people. He came up. He took responsibility, said the buck stops here, and he's going to cooperate in any investigation. Here we have, in this report, the State Department should have increased its security posture more significantly in Benghazi based on the deteriorating security situation on the ground and threat reporting on the prior attacks against Westerners in Benghazi. A letter was written by the ambassador himself. Hillary said, I never saw the letter, and that's the end of it. I mean, what a contrast in so-called scandals.
I think just remember these two parallel universes here. Look at the amount of energy going into the New Jersey bridge problem.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, you know, it's something that needs to be looked at fully and thoroughly. And Chris Christie is saying, I welcome the investigation. Happened on my watch. I take responsibility. He fired the folks. Look at the mainstream media interest in Benghazi all of these years later. For a guy like me who thought it was a BS story from the moment I heard it, it's been very frustrating. But I do appreciate the report. But let me just say this. This is the intelligence community laying a lot of blame on the State Department. The State Department, I think, deserves that blame. But here's a question. On 14 September, there was a meeting in the White House. The evidence was overwhelming and clear that this was not a protest but a terrorist attack. All the intelligence suggested that. Remember the Susan Rice story on the 15th of September. There's no evidence of a pre-planned terrorist attack, no al-Qaeda involvement. Al-Qaeda's on the run. This was a protest caused by video. Who was in the meeting on 14 September in the White House? And did the intelligence community agree with those talking point changes? And if they did, why? And when she said what she said, did they object? And if not, why not? And did anybody in the intelligence community ever call the president up and say, Mr. President, for 2 weeks was saying it was a protest caused by video, you got this wrong? Somebody needs to ask those questions of the intelligence community.
Well, who would you like to see called or recalled? Hillary and
a lot of people. Well, I'd like a joint select committee to look at Benghazi as a whole, not a subparts. I would like a group of people who would ask questions of the Pentagon. Where were you on 9/11? Why couldn't you get there? And you couldn't have known how long the attack was going to last, so don't tell me you couldn't get there in time. You didn't know if it was going to last 3 days. on 10 September, the White House official who said the president has just talked to his national security team, we're ready for any contingency anywhere in the world. I want to go into that. I want to find out who did the president talk to on his national security team on 10 September, and how could Benghazi happen if that were actually true? So I would like a joint select committee that is able to look at the Department of Defense, the Department of State, and the intelligence community as a whole.
Yeah, I hear you. We're talking to Senator Lindsey Graham here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let me ask you, sir. People don't often talk about or realize your distinguished career in the Air Force, and of course, you've been leading the charge. You voted against the budget deal, and now we find out yesterday that the $1.1 trillion bill keeps about 82% of military retirees will still face thousands of dollars in lost retirement pay. Your response to that?
Unconscionable for the United States Congress, particularly Republicans, to have done this to our retired community. Let me explain to your listeners what we did. In an effort to come up with this budget agreement to replace some sequestration cuts on the defense and non-defense side, we had to come up with billions of dollars of offsets. Now, this deal doesn't change the fate of the country. It doesn't reform Medicare or Social Security. There is no entitlement reform in this deal. It basically replaces some sequestration cuts that were really hurting the military, and I appreciate that. But when it came time to pay for the relief, some retirees by doing the following: taking their cost of living allowance and reducing it by 1% retroactively. So if you've been in the military for 18 years and you retire 2 years from now, say at 42, between 42 and 62, your cost of living allowance will be adjusted by 1% a year. If you're an E7, a master sergeant retiring, if you're a lieutenant colonel retiring in 2016 at 42 or 44, you lose over $100,000. Not one group in the entire country was asked to make this sacrifice. You're basically rearranging the deal. You're adjusting the COLAs retroactively. This is not a cost of living adjustment for Medicare, Social Security, and the military. Civilian retirees in this deal had to make a contribution to their retirement plan, but everybody in the current system was grandfathered. Only people in America that had their cost of living adjustment adjusted or the military retirement community retroactively. So after 20 years of honorable service that's completed in 2016, you've probably been to Iraq or Afghanistan at least once or twice. You've had your ass shot off if you're in the fighting force. And this is the way we reward you. The deal is that your children and children throughout the country, our loved ones, will not be drafted because the volunteer force takes their place. And look what we did. We gave them a penalty, retroactively a portion. It applied to disabled medical retirees who would lose COLA. The reason you have a COLA is to keep the retirement benefits from being eaten up by inflation.
Right.
We have changed the deal in midstream. We picked the military retirement community who has given us 20 years of honorable service, maybe 30. They've missed countless vacations, countless Christmases. It is the low point in my time in Congress.
Yeah, it is disgraceful. Very quickly, sir. Harry Reid taking to the floor of the Senate and talking about how kids are going to be hurt by the non-extension of the unemployment benefits. He talked about kids. He talked about and I hearken back to this is the man who wouldn't bring up for a vote in the Senate the funding the NIH, the National Institute of Health for kids with cancer. Even mocked that suggestion. He talked about veterans being hurt with lack of unemployment benefits, and he wouldn't bring up the bill that would have helped veterans during the shutdown. And I just wish you guys on your side would retort with that kind of rhetoric that I'm saying here.
Well, you're dead right. The obstructionist in the Senate is Harry Reid. He's the guy that's stopping. You've got tons of Republicans like myself who would be willing to extend unemployment insurance for 3 months if you paid for it, but I'm insisting that we fix the COLA problem for our military retired community. Here's what Kelly Ayotte, my colleague from New Hampshire, was able to do. She found a provision in the tax code. The Inspector General said that $27 billion over the next decade will be given in refundable child tax credits, the $500 refundable child tax credit, to children who don't live in the United States and children that don't exist, because to get the tax credit, you don't need a Social Security number, you just need a tax identification number. That system is full of fraud. You could save $27 billion over the next decade that would pay for the unemployment extension for 3 months and fix the COLA provision, which is about $6 billion, and have money to go to the debt, and we could even get a vote on it. And all you would have to do is require a Social Security number before you gave the refundable child tax credit. That's hurting children. That's protecting the taxpayer. The Senate is completely dysfunctional. We can't get a vote on Iran sanctions. I got 60 co-sponsors saying we should have more sanctions against Iran if we don't get a good deal, not less, and I can't get that to the floor.
Yeah, well, of course, the president is pulling Harry Reid strings. It certainly looks that way. Senator,
we need a change of management in the Senate.
Well, I hope that's coming in 2014. You think so?
Yeah, I do. I think Benghazi is going to loom large in 2014. I think Democrats are going to have to start making President Obama account for his leadership. Where was he that night? Did he know it was a terrorist attack?
Right.
Why did he say for 2 weeks we think it was a protest? How could he have done that? The scrutiny to the president that you have for Chris Christie has not existed. I hope it will come when it comes to Benghazi.
Right.
I hope eventually in 2014 President Obama will have to account for his leadership.
Senator, thank you very much. So look forward to the next time we chat.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Senator Lindsey Graham, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Very interesting conversation indeed. All right, we're coming back. Lots ahead. Mark O'Mara coming up in this hour. The Florida theater shooting over texting, and enter into this whole case. Anyway, we'll be back. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg